Your phone is going to ring. The person you've been waiting for or perhaps tried to forget is about to reach out to you. This isn't just any call. It's the chance to hear what has been stuck in your throat, to understand what was never said, and to feel again what deep down you knew was still there. Take a deep breath because this voice is going to stir you. Be ready to listen and, most importantly, to decide what to do with all of this. Do you know what happens when the unexpected comes knocking at your door? There's no time to plan, and control slips through your fingers before you even realize it. This call, it's coming to throw you off balance. You may have waited for it in silence, pretending it didn't matter. But now it's about to happen. When the phone rings, it will feel like the entire world stops. The voice on the other end, the one that once made you smile for no reason, or the one that hurt you more than you thought possible, will be back. The tone will disarm you. It might be laden with nostalgia, or with a hesitation that shows something big is about to be said. And then, the question echoes. Are you prepared to hear what comes next? Make no mistake, this is not a simple hello. There is a purpose behind this call, even if the person on the other end doesn't yet know how to put everything into words. The truth is, when someone decides to reach out like this, after so much time or silence, something inside them is screaming louder than pride, louder than fear. Maybe it's regret. Maybe it's longing. Or maybe it's a confusing mix of all that, difficult to translate. And you, what will you do when you hear that voice? Will you pretend indifference? Will you play defensively to avoid appearing vulnerable? Or will you simply allow the conversation to happen without thinking about what is right or what is safe? Because no matter how much you want to control the course of things, this call did not come to follow a script. The first words might be shaky, loaded with rehearsed-sounding excuses. The person might try to pretend that it's just a casual conversation, when in reality, you know there's much more weight behind every pause, every breath. Maybe they'll say something like, "I just wanted to know how you are." But you know that this question carries much more than curiosity. It's a request for permission to enter your life again, even if in a timid, cautious way. So what do you feel at that moment? Anger? Relief? A knot in your chest that you don't know whether to untangle or tighten even more? Maybe all of this at the same time. Maybe none of these things, but something completely unexpected. Because no matter how many times you've imagined this moment in your head, now that it's here, it feels so different, so real. You will hear words that could reopen old wounds or bring the healing you didn't even know you needed. Words that could change everything or simply confirm what you already knew but were afraid to admit. The conversation might be short, almost banal, but deep down its impact will be much greater than it seems. This call is not just about who is calling. It's about you, about how you will choose to react, about what you will decide to carry with you and what you will leave behind. Because at the end of the day, this is not just a conversation, it's a turning point. It's the opportunity to reframe everything that happened between you, whether to give a new beginning or to finally close what was left unresolved. But know this, the decision to answer and how to conduct this conversation is in your hands. There's no point in hiding behind fear or pretending you don't feel anything. Because whether you want to or not, this call will confront you with your own truth. So take a deep breath. Allow yourself to feel, even if it scares you. Answer the phone with an open heart, but with the awareness that you have the power to decide how this story continues from here on. With the phone in hand, you'll feel that weight in the air, as if something important is about to happen. It's impossible to ignore the insistent sound that vibrates not just the device, but also the space around you. What is to come requires courage. Courage to answer, courage to listen, and above all, courage to deal with whatever comes from this call. What could she want? Perhaps to apologize, talk about things you thought were already buried, or maybe just to hear your voice, even without being sure of what to say afterward. Because some things don't need to be explained but felt. And believe me, this call carries much more emotion than any words could convey. You feel your breathing quicken. Your heart beats faster, not because you're in a panic, but because deep down something is awakening. It's as if everything that was left behind is suddenly in front of you, forcing you to face what you tried to avoid. The silence between the phone rings seems to echo louder than any noise, as if inviting you, or challenging you to finally resolve what is pending. When you answer, the first few seconds might be just silence, a heavy silence loaded with meanings. Maybe she'll take a while to speak, because the weight of each word is on her lips waiting to be said, but at the same time fearing the reaction. Or maybe her voice will come all at once, rushed by anxiety, as if the fear of losing courage is stronger than the need to choose the right words. And will you let her speak or will you interrupt? Will you demand answers or will you simply listen? Because sometimes silence says more than any word, and maybe what she needs most right now is to know that you are still willing to listen. Prepare yourself for surprises. Not the obvious ones, but those that subtly pull the ground from beneath you, making you realize things you hadn't seen before. She might talk about things you never knew, things she carried alone, unable to share, or that she now finally feels she can say. Maybe she'll confess something she had hidden, something she wasn't brave enough to admit before. And then, when you least expect it, she might ask you something direct, something that will put you against the wall. Do you still think about me? Have you moved on? Or worse, do you still feel something for me? These questions are not just words. They are doors that once opened cannot be closed so easily. You might feel pressured, as if you're being forced to give an answer you're not sure you have. But in truth, this call is not about her. It's about you, about what you feel, about what you want, and about what you're willing to do with all of it. Because in the end, no one knows you as well as she does. She knows how your emotions work, knows where to touch to awaken memories, to rekindle feelings you thought were extinguished. It's not manipulation. It's the connection you had, and that in a way still exists. But that's the question. Does this connection still make sense? Do you still want to carry this with you? Or is this call the chance you were waiting for to put an end to this story? Maybe the conversation starts to take a deeper, more intense turn. She might talk about things she never had the courage to say before, about the mistakes she made, about the moments when she thought about reaching out to you but didn't have the strength. And how will you react? Will you want to forgive? Or will you want to protect what's left of you, maintaining the distance you fought so hard to create? Make no mistake, this call is not just about the past. It's about the present, about who you are now and who she has become. Because you are no longer the same people you once were, and that changes everything. You might discover that there is still something between you, something worth fighting to rebuild. Or you might realize that this call, as painful as it may be, is exactly what you needed to finally move on. And then, at some point, she might say something that will completely disarm you, a phrase, a word, or even a silence, something that will awaken everything that was dormant. Maybe it's a confession. Maybe it's a shared memory. Maybe it's just the way she says your name, as if she still has the power to make you feel something you thought no longer existed. But the truth is, no matter how much you try to prepare for this call, nothing can prepare you for its real impact. Because feelings don't follow logic, and the heart has a strange way of reacting to things. You may think you're in control, but in reality it's the intensity of the moment that will determine the course of this conversation. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to be carried away by what you feel, or will you cling to reason to try to maintain control? Will you allow this call to transform you, or will you use it as a full stop? The decision is yours, but either way, this call has already changed everything. You know that by answering there's no turning back. The simple act of sliding your finger across the phone screen will be like opening a door that you might have sworn to keep locked. Maybe you've thought about how this moment would be countless times, mentally rehearsed what you would say, or even sworn to yourself that if it happened, you wouldn't feel anything. But now, the moment reality knocks at the door, those promises begin to waver. Her voice will cut through the silence like a fine but precise blade. Hi. A word so short, but that carries all the weight of someone who didn't know where to start. You can respond with coldness, with caution, or with the intensity of someone who hasn't yet moved on. You might even hesitate, but the fact is that the sound of her voice will have already made an impact. It's impossible to pretend that nothing is happening, because you know this call didn't come out of nowhere. There's something between the lines, even if it's not yet clear. Maybe she has an explanation tucked away, a reason for the silence, an excuse for the absence. Maybe she wants to talk about what happened, or maybe she needs to know if you still think about her. But the truth? She probably doesn't even know exactly what she hopes to find in this conversation. While she starts to speak, you will notice something. Her voice is loaded with nuances that only you can capture. There is a hesitation there, a carefulness in the words, as if she is trying to balance everything she feels without scaring you or pushing you away. And yet, there is also a veiled determination, something that suggests she needs to say this, that she can't delay anymore. She might begin by talking about trivial things, trying to ease the tension. How are you? I've been thinking about you a lot. Simple words, but they carry immense weight because you know what is hidden behind them. And then, when you least expect it, she might let slip what is really behind this call. I couldn't move on. Maybe she will confess this. Maybe she will say that she regrets something, or that she missed you in moments she didn't have the courage to admit. The impact of these words will be visceral because you know they come from a genuine place, even if it's hard to process. And as she speaks, you will find yourself struggling with your own feelings. Part of you might want to embrace these words, believe in them, and leave the past behind. But another part might be on alert, wondering if it is safe to open up to all this again. Because, after all, reopening wounds can be risky, but ignoring what you feel also has its price. Maybe she will apologize. But not in the superficial way you have heard from others. These apologies will come accompanied by a vulnerability that is almost palpable, as if each word is laden with a pain she is finally letting show. I messed everything up, and I don't even know if you can forgive me, but I needed to say this. And what are you going to say in return? Because at this moment, everything will depend on you. You can choose to forgive and give a second chance, even if it means revisiting memories that still hurt. Or you can choose to protect yourself, maintain the barriers you've built, and make it clear that this chapter is already closed. But here's the thing. This conversation isn't just about her, it's about you, about what you need, what you deserve, and how you want your story to move forward. Because as much as she brings her own pains and regrets, this call will only have the impact you allow. And then she might ask what you felt all this time. Did you think about me too, or was I just a memory for you? This question isn't asked lightly, because depending on your answer, it could be the turning point. You know how loaded these words are, but you also know that she's not asking this to pressure you. She's asking because she needs to know. Because for her, this conversation is more than a reunion. It's a search for answers she couldn't find alone. And then, maybe you'll realize that this call isn't about giving or not giving a second chance. It's about freeing you both from the weight of what remained unresolved. Because even if you decide to go your separate ways, this conversation has the power to close a cycle, to bring the closure that neither of you got before. But what happens next? After she says everything she needed to say, after you decide what to do with those words? Because in the end, no conversation, no matter how impactful, can change the past. It can only open doors to a different future, whether it's with her or without her. And then at some point she will say something that will echo in your mind for a long time, even after the call ends. It could be a shared memory, a promise she made to herself, or a simple, "I still love you." At this moment, it will be impossible to ignore what you feel. Because even if you want to move on, even if you have built barriers to protect yourself, emotions always find a way to overflow. And this connection is not just a conversation. It's a confrontation with everything you tried to bury. A confrontation you can no longer postpone. The decision is in your hands. You can choose what to do from here. But regardless of what you decide, one thing is certain. This connection has already changed something in you. This connection is more than words. It's about choices and feelings. What would you do in this situation? Comment, subscribe for more reflections like this, and leave your like. We want to hear from you.